Marcos administration once again raised concerns over ongoing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. That happened when Manila hosted the latest round of negotiations on the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea last week from April 9 to 11. The talks were co-chaired by Malaysia and China. The DFA says the Philippines stressed the need to adhere to international law, particularly the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS and the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Award. But progress has been slow on a code of conduct due to disagreements over its scope and whether it should be legally binding. While China prefers a non-binding agreement, some ASEAN countries are pushing for a legally enforceable agreement that aligns with international law. Beijing continues to reject the 2016 ruling, which dismissed its 9-line claim.
Coinciding with that, the Armed Forces of the Philippines confirmed that the Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System, or Nemesis, from the United States has arrived in the country. The Nemesis is a coastal anti-ship missile that can strike hostile surface vessels from land. The AFP also confirmed that it will be part of the Balikatan exercises that is slated for April 21 until May 9. In the said drills, 5,000 are expected to participate from the Philippine military, 9,000 from the U.S. Armed Forces, as well as 200 from the Australian Defense Force. In addition, 17 countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, and South Korea, will also be participating as observers. Recall that back in March, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Nemesis will be deployed to the Philippines to counter Chinese presence in the region. But it is unclear at this point whether it will be left in the Philippines after the exercises, just as the Typhoon missile system was last year.
To make sense of all of these, we're joined now by Attorney Batongbacal, Director of the UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea. Attorney Jay, good evening. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me.
The first thing I'd like to do is make a slight correction to our news story, an update, not a correction. Google has come out with a statement saying that the West Philippine Sea label has always been there. What they did recently was just to make it larger. So it's a labeling thing. They just made it more visible to see. So when you don't have to zoom in so close to see it. So that's all the changes that they made, but they say that it's always been there. Having said that, of course, people are still very happy to see it on social media. It's gone viral. People are sharing it jubilantly. Help us understand the context and the meaning behind this. Does it hold any sort of weight at all in your perspective?
Well, we have to first keep in mind that Google is a private company that also operates in the Philippines. They do have a local subsidiary, I think, and offices in Taguig. So they are considered as also a corporation operating or doing business in the Philippines. So it's just natural to expect Google to follow Philippine laws, rules, and regulations, including labeling of Philippine areas. So we thank Google, of course, for doing this and making it clearer, as you have just updated. No? But we also have to keep in mind that as a private company, I mean, Google is not a representative of, say, any country. No? So what it means really is that it's more of the widening recognition among private entities, citizens, and both natural and juridical, no? Of awareness of the Philippines and its rights and entitlements, no? Symbolized by the adoption of the name West Philippine Sea on Google Maps. And I think it's probably also in Google Earth. I'll have to check. Yeah.
All right, and of course, as that piece of news caught fire online and went viral, we've heard other pieces of news coming out of the waters around our country. One, the Navy saying that a lot of the drones, underwater drones that they've recovered, there are 5 of them from 2022 to 2024. They're saying they're 80% sure that these came from China. Then we have, of course, off Itbayat Batanes, the Chinese research vessel. Then coming off of the talks last week, Attorney Jay, what do you make of all of this? Is it more of the same? Is there some sort of escalation?
Well, in terms of the recovery of these drones in our waters, this has been happening for quite some time. Fishermen even contacted me a couple of times already back during the pandemic, wherein they showed me stuff that they had recovered. This included target drones and other instrumentation. Now, so in a way, it's more of the same. We also have to keep in mind that these types of underwater drones, they're designed for long-range loitering, and it's also possible that they were there even longer until their batteries ran out, literally. So they've been they got washed ashore in some cases, no, or they were recovered by fishermen. So it's really more the same in a way, but it also is proof that for quite some time now, China apparently has been essentially exploring our inter-island waters, no? Because no matter, in the best case scenario, this could be considered as marine scientific research, which should be done with the consent and authorization of the Philippines. So the fact that these drones are possibly being released in our waters, no, or allowed to go into our waters if they're released outside of it, no, that should be a matter of concern, no? Because yes, it can be used for both scientific and or military purposes, the kinds of data that these drones are designed to collect, no? So it's only right that the Philippine Navy, Coast Guard, our maritime authorities, as well as our own citizens, no, when they see these things floating in our entire island waters, especially, they should be recovered and brought to the authorities, no, so that we can find out what they've been looking for or what they've been collecting, no, if we can, and get a sense of where their interests lie, no? As for the scientific research vessel that's being monitored off Batanes, again more of the same, but notice that this really began in frequency, especially only after 2017. No? And we have been monitoring these increasing activities of Chinese research vessels all around the country, no, within and outside of our EEZ. So some of this might be for scientific purposes, meaning altruistic purposes like weather forecasting or legitimate oceanographic research that might be together with international partners, but others may not. And the problem we have is that precisely China does not tell us, no, they do not, they apparently are not seeking our consent to do this, and that goes against international law.
Yeah,
And
actually,
they're not being transparent as well because even if they do this, they have an obligation to share the data that they collect from our waters.
right. So we know a little bit more about what data they're collecting. Some of it is has to do with water depth. Some of it's
Yes.
sound range, the salinity of the water. As you said, parang sounds innocuous enough. Sounds like it's gonna be could potentially be for civilian use. But do these also have military functions? Could they be used for defense? If you have
Yes,
data like that?
definitely. Definitely, because what they're collecting basically is information about the underwater environment. So within that environment, you can either use it for altruistic purposes, like understanding the environment and knowing things like biodiversity, no, etc. Or you can use it as well for military purposes because the devices that are used by submarines, no, weapons, submarine navigation, etc. Those use the same environmental information in order to work. No? So that's why it's dual use, so called. So this is a matter of concern, and that's why these types of activities necessarily have to have the consent of the Philippines if they're being done, no? And we're finding evidence of it in our waters.
Well, Attorney Jay, I also wanted to ask about your thoughts on the AFP already confirming that the Nemesis has arrived in the Philippines, and that's on top, of course, the Typhoon missile systems, which will be used in the Balikatan exercises. How do you think China will be reacting to these? Could they possibly see it as the U.S. using the Philippines as a hub to deploy its missile systems?
Well, we can expect that from China because it's their standard response now to anything we do. If we were to deploy a package of chippy or Jack and Jill cheese curls into the water, they'd probably say the same thing. Anything we do now for them is always, they always protest it as being, again, another being done at the bequest of the U.S. or destabilizing, etc. No, I mean, that only shows, I think, that only shows that China really is very uncomfortable, shall we say, that we are now developing our capabilities, particularly for external self-defense. No, and these types of missile systems, they're you know for practical defense purposes, they really are only for defense because there's so few and the range is much shorter. People may not be aware that the Philippines, all the way up to most of the Visayas and parts of Mindanao, as well as the entirety of Palawan, we're already in the range of Chinese missiles. No? Since around 20, well, on the western side, since around 2016, 2017, when they installed these things on those artificial islands. And then from the mainland, even more, even longer. So for them, any little sign that a country like us, a smaller country like us, would want to build up our defense capabilities, for them is a challenge, and they don't like that. Even if in the end they have more, still the fact that a small country like us can dare to stand up to them and try to protect itself from them, that really apparently gets a reaction from them. So we can expect that they will have more of the same statements, same kinds of statements and reactions in the next couple of days.
While a lot of what we're talking about is, as we would put it, no more of the same, a few weeks ago, the PLA Eastern Theater Commanding General, he actually categorically said that they're rehearsing a blockade around Taiwan, and everyone saw the assets, air and sea assets going around the island. With the incoming Balikatan, which is about to start next week, Attorney Jay, how do you think it would change, I don't know, the intensity perhaps of the exercises this time around? Would it have an effect, you think?
Well, so far, remember, these types of exercises of China began around 2022. It's just that they become more frequent, no? While our Balikatan has regularly taken place for even longer. I don't think it will affect the Balikatan in the sense that we already have a clear program and we're quite transparent about it, I think. And the kinds of activities and exercises we're doing have also shifted really to external defense. So it hasn't really changed. No? I mean, this is part of a longer process of building up our external defense. For the Chinese, their increasing frequency and intensity of these exercises, it has been progressing for quite some time. No? From say one or two back in 2022, then more in 2023, and now we're seeing sudden practically unannounced exercises as well taking place. No? So you could say that it doesn't have to be related to Balikatan. They clearly have their own schedule and their own pace. And what's probably more, what we need to watch out for really will be if they decide to carry out exercises coinciding with our exercises in the same area. So that will be the one that might raise eyebrows. But as I said, our exercises, Balikatan exercises, there are always briefings and they're always announced, so we know where they will take place and what will be involved. No, it's on the other side, which brings these surprises. No, so I would say that if that does happen, that there's a coincidence of these exercises in nearly the same area, like up north. Well, it will be clear that any issues that might arise will have been raised or will be provoked by them, not by us, no? Because our exercises are scheduled and transparent. It's theirs which are not.
Are you expecting that to happen with this year's Balikatan, that magsasabay sila? Or?
Well, it's not that I'm expecting it, but I wouldn't be surprised, no? Given that they have been increasing their frequency, their exercises around Taiwan. Yeah. So it is possible. Even a small-scale exercise like sending their jets to circumnavigate around Taiwan, for example, or a small fleet, no? that could raise problems if we happen to be also doing exercises in that area.
Yeah. Talking about standing up to China, small countries standing up to China, the Philippines once again raised concerns about the tensions in the West Philippine Sea. This was during the joint working group negotiations for the Code of Conduct. Of course, it's behind closed doors, but from what we gather, the sticking points remain, what they call the milestone issues. Number one, the scope of the Code of Conduct. Number two, whether it's going to be legally binding. And of course, the Philippines is pushing for the code to be legally binding, but China is digging in and refusing to do so, to acknowledge that it should be legally binding. Tell me what the way forward is from here. You are an expert on maritime law. Is it possible to have a code that's not going to be legally binding? And if so, what would be the point of it if we can't hold each other to account legally?
Well, there are precedents for that, no? And for example, the 2002 Declaration of Conduct, it's a non-binding code. And from my perspective, it has been effective, at least with respect to the ASEAN members who have claims against each other. No, the DOC has basically set a standard for them in how they relate with each other, and they've been able to manage their relations despite competing claims, no, especially in the Spratly region. The problem is with China. No? In that sense, the DOC has been, say, limited impact, especially when it came to us, no? And that's to be expected because we're first in line. When you look at the map, tayo, dadaan talaga sila sa atin before they get to the other ASEAN claimants, except for Vietnam, which is off to the side, no? It it would still serve a purpose if the member countries, the signatories, no, really demonstrate commitment to abide by what it contains. No? So in that sense, that's why the whole idea of a code of conduct, by the way, came from the Philippines back in 1996. And the point was that it would build confidence between the parties if they are able to demonstrate that they can agree to even non-binding rules. No? And by building up confidence, it could also be a way of stepping towards final resolution of disputes. No? Obviously, it hasn't achieved that purpose after 2 decades. No? So we can understand why countries would want a legally binding document, no? In the hope that a legally binding document would somehow be stronger, the commitment would be stronger. But the reality is, no, even a legally binding document, even if you sign it with your fingers crossed behind your back, no, or you sign it only for show with no intention of actually abiding by it, then it doesn't matter whether it's binding or legally binding. No? It's the commitment and the subsequent conduct that really matters. That's where we have a problem, I think, because the record has shown that certain countries might sign things but don't actually abide by them later on.
Yun nga, I feel like that's the only thing the Philippines can hold on to, right? If all countries were to at least sign it and agree that it should be legally binding, commitment or not. But I get your point about commitment. It's just that what other proof can we expect from China that they are committed to this other than for them to sign that document, right? To say, yes, it should be legally binding.
The proof will be in the pudding, meaning that, yeah, you have to sign it and then we have to see how they react. One thing that we have to watch out for, I think, which is very important, is they need to perform a gesture of good faith, no? For example, withdrawing their ships, no? Increasing the distance between their ships and ours. That, I think, is a necessary gesture of good faith in order for us to gauge whether they're really willing, no, to abide by whatever rules are contained in the COC.
Yeah.
No?
Fair
Oh, by the
point.
way, my understanding is that Philippines has not yet fully committed to a binding code of conduct at this point. No, because of course they have to wait and see what the final content of the document will be.
Yeah.
That is what will decide whether they would want it to be binding or non-binding.
Yeah, fair point. We'll leave that there. Thank you so much for your time and insights tonight. That was Attorney J. Batongbacal, Director of the UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea.